Hi boys and girls, it's Mrs. Paddock. Hope you're all doing well. I have a story that's part of our collection of bee books, and let's see. So it's called From Egg to Bee, and it's part of the life cycle of the bee. Hope you enjoy it. It's got nice pictures in it for sure. What is a bee? A bee is a type of an insect, and there are about 5,700 types of bees, and they live all over the world. Bees are important. They help plants to grow seeds and fruit. Some bees are endangered and need our help to protect them. Most bees, well, they have yellow and black stripes. This big furry bee here is called a bumblebee. Most sweat bees have dark and colorful bodies. So you rarely see something like that. Now this one we see often, it's called a honeybee. And honeybees visit flowers to collect their sweet nectar and pollen. They use nectar to make honey. And if you look at the body, the mouth is over here. It's like a straw, proboscis. We've got legs, there's a tail, and there's a wing here. The story of a honeybee. A honeybee's home is called a hive. Lots of honeybees live in a hive. There is one queen bee in a hive, and she lays eggs. Each egg will grow into a larva. A larva changes into an adult bee. A bee's egg is tiny. It's about 1 1/25 of an inch, so it's about 1 millimeter, so very, very tiny. So there's an egg right there, you can kind of see. So there's the egg. The egg hatches and and a larva comes out. So this is the larva, right? You can see the larva in there. So from the egg, it hatches into the larva, and then here, it turns into a pupa, and so you can see there's already the eye. You can kind of start to make out that it's going to be a bee soon, right? But it's still growing. And then finally, when a larva changes into an adult, it's called a pupa. And then here, an adult bee looks very different than the larva, right? And here we have the adult, and you can see, look, this is where the pollen is collected. The story of how an egg grows into an adult bee is called a life cycle. In the hive, a group of honeybees is called a colony, and each colony lives in one hive. There are 3 types of honeybees in the colony. One queen bee, lots of worker bees, and some drones. A queen bee lays all of the eggs. So here's the queen bee. She's pretty big compared to the other ones. These are worker bees. Worker bees are all female. They have lots of important jobs to do. Worker bees make and clean the hive. They look after the eggs and they feed the larva. They also collect food for the colony. The drones, so we have drones here, they're boys. So all the drones are males, okay? Their job basically is just to mate with the queen bee. There is honeycomb inside the hive. It's made of wax and it has many holes, and they're called cells. Each cell will be filled with either honey or an egg. Okay. Laying the eggs. Spring is a busy time for honeybees. The workers get the hive ready by building lots of wax cells. The queen mates with the drones and they fertilize her eggs. The queen can lay hundreds of eggs every day. She puts each one into a cell. So if you look in one of the hexagon cells, you can see there's an egg in there, okay? Most cells have just 1 egg inside of them. After just 3 days, the eggs are ready to hatch. Each cell now holds a tiny white larva. So again, you can see now the larva inside here. So the egg has now changed into a larva. The queen makes a special glue and she sticks the egg inside of its cell. Each wax cell is a hexagon shape, has 6 sides. Busy bees. The baby bees are growing in their cells, and the worker bees, well, they have to find food for them. A worker bee has pollen baskets. So here's a pollen basket, and you can see all the pollen in there. When the bee visits a flower, the baskets fill up with pollen. They fly out of the hive and go look for flowers. Honeybees like colorful flowers that smell nice. Worker bees collect pollen and nectar from the flowers, and then they fly back to the hive. In the hive, worker bees are busy cleaning and feeding the larvae. Worker bees use the nectar to make honey in the honeycomb. Bees have a strong tongue. They use it to suck nectar from the flower. So here you can actually see the tongue proboscis, and it's sucking the nectar up. Growing and eating. Inside the hive, worker bees are taking care of the larva. First, they feed the larva with pollen and nectar. Then they make a wax lid for each cell to keep the larva safe and warm while they grow. Worker bees waggle their bodies to tell other bees where to find the best flowers with lots of nectar. It's called a waggle dance. The workers make sure every larva has enough food. Inside each closed cell, the larva changes into an adult bee. A bee is called a pupa while it's making this change. So you can see it here. As the pupa grows, it looks more like a bee. So again, you can start to see the parts of it, right? And you're almost done. A bee appears. 10 days later, an adult bee comes out of each wax cell. It looks very different from the larva. An adult bee has 6 legs, 4 wings, it has large eyes and a hairy body. Worker bees have stings at the end of their tails. But the drones do not. So the boy bees, honeybees, don't have the stingers. It's just the drones, okay? The bee eats up the cap on its cell so that it can climb out. So here it's going to start to climb out. And then here the bee has large eyes so that it can find flowers. And then here the bee uses the long feelers, these are the long feelers, on its head to touch, smell, and taste. A honeybee has yellow and black stripes on its body. So here's the adult honeybee. How bees live. Some bees live in the wild. Other bees, they live in special hives. Wild bees make their hives in trees, roofs, or walls of buildings. Beekeepers build hives for their bees. They collect the honey and the wax that the bees have made. So this is a beekeeper and he's wearing special equipment here. They wear special suits so that the bees cannot sting them. And this is the smoker that we heard in another story. That's used to kind of mellow out the bees so that the worker here, this beekeeper, can extract all the wax and the honey. Here's a honeycomb. And here you can see the beekeeper takes honeycomb from the hive. It's full of sweet honey, so you can scrape off the wax, and underneath here is the honey. We eat honey. We use beeswax in makeup, food, candles, and even shoe polish. A new queen. Thousands of honeybees live in a hive. When there are too many bees, it's time to make a new hive. The queen leaves the hive and takes some of the bees with her. Special bees called scouts choose a good place to build a new hive. The bees are ready to fly away. They are now called a swarm. Sometimes they'll swarm on different things like trees, cars, you name it. And then here, the queen climbs out of her cell and the workers will clean her. So here's a new one being born, right? The queen's cell is bigger than the other cells. So you could tell that this is going to be a queen bee here being born. In the old hive, the larva, excuse me, in the old hive, the larvae have grown into adults. The new queen leaves her cell. Soon she'll be ready to start laying eggs. And the life cycle, well, it's going to begin again. There you go, my friends. Hope you enjoyed our story about the life cycle of the bee. Very important for us. Without bees, I have to say that we wouldn't have all the food that we have to eat. So bees are very, very important to us, and we need to make sure that we look after the bees. Okay? Love you lots, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.